Welcome, everybody. Happy Tuesday to you. Welcome to the Morning Update Show. I am your co host, Trey Holiday. And you know what? We're getting this week rolling, as always, with my partner, Big O. What's up, Big O? Happy Tuesday, man.
Happy Tuesday, Trey Holiday. How are you today?
I'm feeling good, man. How are you?
I'm all right. Doesn't happen often. I made a mistake.
Oh, there it is.
But I always like to tell people it's always good to just say when you made a mistake. I read an email wrong, and it said that what I read it as is that Dan Strauss, Councilmember Strauss, will be joining us today, but he's actually joining us on Friday, which is actually good for Councilmember Strauss because Friday is Feel Good Friday.
That's right.
And when the council member does join us on Friday, he's going to be talking about this Bringing Business Home program or initiative or legislation trying to launch, which will relax regulations around people operating a business out of their home. COVID is like things are switching up. Like right now, you can kind of operate a business, but there's lots of rules and regulations around it. So what Council Member Strauss wants to do is relax some of those regulations. We might find it might work out good in our neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great program. I mean, people have been talking to me about it in terms of some of the zoning restrictions for the reasons why they can't operate certain businesses in their home. So, hey, I think that you're right when you say that. Oh, that it may hit our neighborhood in a really good, positive light. We'll see.
Yep. So that's going to be Friday, Feel Good Friday. We're going to have Council Member Dan Strauss. So my apologies. They called me from the council office this morning. They were like, "Oh, we just saw that you've tweeted out that the council member is going to be on the show this morning." I'm like, "Yeah, we're looking forward to it." They're like, "No, you have to take it." So my bad, and apologies to the council staff down there. They were on it though.
Yeah,
they were on the phone. We should be joined here shortly by Hamdi Mohammed. Hamdi Mohammed is a candidate for Port of Seattle Commission Position 3. And so I talked to Hamdi, and I was reading the release about Hamdi, and been pretty busy.
Yes, so busy. I mean, doing amazing things, bringing awareness to sectors that really need it. So honestly, I'm so excited that she's going to be on today and that we're going to be able to have that chance, sit down with her, hear more about why she's going out for this particular seat. I think it also shows a lot of courage too. I mean, being one of the first Black women to even go after a seat like this down there at the commission for the port. So, hey, it's a great day.
People understand port is big money.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The port makes money, and representation matters. So be excited to talk to Hamdi Mohammed. But now, since we have Councilmember Strauss moved to Friday, we have a gap in the show. So I'm gonna mix some things up here. We actually had this was a clip from Cairo 7 that we were actually going to play at the end of the show. But we're going to play it now at the beginning of the show as we wait for Hamdi Mohammed to join us. But down in Tacoma been in the news lately. They've been changing names of parks, and now they've changed the name to a school there to honor a longtime resident and civil rights activist and some of everything else, Dr. Dolores Silas.
Woodrow Wilson High School in Tacoma will soon have a new name. It will be the first school in Tacoma ever named for a Black woman. And in tonight's Western Washington Gets Real segment, you get to meet her. Cairo 7's Deborah Horn spoke with a true trailblazer, 94-year-old Dr. Dolores Silas.
Is this essentially going down memory lane here?
Yes, it is.
In her nearly 95 years,
It was unreal.
Dr. Dolores Silas has lived a life of many firsts.
I was president of the Tacoma branch NAACP. I was president of the Northwest area NAACP. I was the first Black on the Pierce County Health Board.
But even before all of that, she was the first Black administrator in the Tacoma School District, went on to be the first Black woman on the Tacoma City Council, its first Black deputy mayor.
We had parking spaces.
Oh.
And so when I left, I took the sign with me.
None of it, she says, was to gain special recognition.
You just don't go out there and say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to be in the newspaper and on television. You do it because it's right.
Or because one day they will name a school for you.
Well, I didn't think that far ahead, Deborah. I didn't think that ever. would happen to me.
And it might not have happened.
I am firmly opposed to changing the name of my alma mater, Woodrow Wilson High School.
The issue was hotly debated before the Tacoma School Board.
On the $400,000 price tag, do we need to be spending this money currently during a pandemic?
But those most passionate about renaming the school were the board's student representatives.
A name change is not just a chance to be politically correct, but a chance to stand on the right side of history, to foster a new truth.
I mean, it's a great school, and that's not going to change just because the name changes. And I think the name change is probably going to make it even better, honestly.
If we aren't doing this now, then when are we going to do it? When is the perfect time to be anti-racist? When is the perfect time to take those steps forward?
Dr. Silas says once the decision was made, she drove over here to Woodrow Wilson High School just once and parked. Perhaps the next time she comes, it'll be her name here, a fitting capstone to a life devoted to education and public service, and all the wisdom that comes with both.
That the person born on the wrong side of the railroad tracks would have a name, a school named after her. Now, breathe on that. Breathe on that for a few minutes. And what does that tell you?
What does it tell you?
Anything is possible. Anything is possible.
Even this. Reporting in Tacoma, Deborah Horn, Cairo 7 News.
That is fantastic, although she can't take that parking sign home. Dr. Silas, congratulations to you. The next Tacoma school whose name is likely to change in a bid to better reflect diversity and inclusion is the Jason Lee Middle School. Its new name is expected to honor the state's Native American heritage.
I mean, wow. I love that what Dr. Silas just said. Anything is possible. I also love that she said, look, you don't do this thinking about the TV spots or you being in the newspaper. You do it because it's right. I mean, clearly, so many of our amazing activists, they had to take that same model with them on a daily basis to ensure that their genuine nature, that their pure intent and their passion for community just reigned through all of their work. So congratulations, Dr. Silas. We are celebrating you all the way over here in Seattle, man. Beautiful story.
Yeah, good look also by Cairo 7 and Deborah Horn.
Yeah.
Picking up that story right there. Looks like we've got Hamdi Muhammad in the green room. Oh, and she is all smiles back there too. Oh yeah, please bring in Hamdi Muhammad. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning to your audience.
Welcome to the Morning Update Show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here with you guys.
All right. Well, let's jump right in. Let's jump right
Hi,
into
sis.
it. Oh, there you go.
You are looking beautiful, love.
I'm trying to match you, you know.
Hey, there we go. There we go. You know what I'm saying? You always come through. Always. You know, we had to do it, man. We got to sprinkle that Black woman magic onto it. You already know. So glad you could join us this morning.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me. You know, it's always, you know, an honor to share space with you all. And I saw you guys' show last week. Thanks for the shout out and for covering my Port of Seattle run. And so I'm excited to be here and share more with you.
All right. So let's jump right into it. We got a few questions for you. But first of all, the floor is yours. Why are you running for Port of Seattle Commission?
Yeah, no, thank you again for the opportunity to share with you all, to the audience. My name is Hamdi Muhammad. My pronouns are she and her. You know, I am a longtime resident of South King County. I grew up in the area. I came to the U.S. when I was 3 years old, and one of my first ports of entries into the United States was at SeaTac Airport. And, you know, I've lived in cities like Kent. I currently live in SeaTac and then lived in Burien. And, you know, now more than ever, we need strong leadership at all levels of government. And the reason why, you know, I decided to run for the Seattle Port Commission is, you know, two reasons. One, currently, none of our port commissions live in the South King County area or part of the airport community. And the airport's operations significantly impact those of us who live in the airport community. And it's time that we get a seat at the table. Our voices and perspective as South King County residents are important. I bring a strong understanding of our whole region, right? I've lived in all parts of King County, and will be able to bring that perspective to the table. We know that, COVID-19 has hit our communities hard, and it has severely impacted certain areas. Depending on where you live, COVID-19 has hit communities differently. When you look at the data in South King County, the COVID-19 rates are sometimes 7 or 8 times higher than other parts of the region. And we know that the economic impacts are going to be even more severe for those communities. Second, I want to bring my expertise in equitable economic development and job creation to the Port of Seattle. Throughout my career, if you look at my career, I've helped a number of our residents and youth, help them with employment opportunities, professional development. I have over 15 years of experience working in King County, and that includes working at our nonprofits, local businesses, as well as King County government and for Congress. And so I want to bring those skills and help the port, invest its resources and energy in supporting communities that have been impacted the most by this pandemic and help them build back better.
Right. Now, reading here, it says that when we talk about your experience, and maybe you can hit a little bit more on that, it says former deputy district director for Congresswoman Jayapal, and also King County Executive Policy Advisor. Can you speak a little bit more to your experience coming into this run for Port of Seattle Commission?
Yeah, no, thank you for that question. It's a great question. I have worked for U.S. Congresswoman Jayapal as her deputy district director. In that role, I facilitated disputes between, federal agencies in matters like, visa, tax, shipment, contractual issues, and facilitating those disputes often was between either residents or small businesses, medium-sized businesses who were having sort of issues or disputes between these federal agencies and themselves. And so often I spent a lot of time on the phones with our federal agencies and making sure that our businesses were able to continue operating. We saved our residents millions of dollars, and I led her constituent services team. As at King County, I am a policy advisor. I advise on the county's $12+ billion budget. Right now, while we have been in the pandemic, I have been serving on the COVID-19 response team. I oversaw the $3 million COVID-19 community response fund. Also, I led efforts that partnered with national leaders to bring resources to our county. Within 2 days, we provided over 3,500 supplies to our residents to basically promote COVID-19 testing sites, right? There was a lot of folks in our community and stigma around testing. And so we worked really hard to normalize that, and we did that with initiatives. And so I led those efforts and serve on that COVID-19 response team. So I have seen, the work of the pandemic close, up front, which is why, like, even when I see the data and the communities that are being impacted, I'm seeing it up close and wanting to, help the port invest in those communities and help them, recover and thrive. And I think they can be the center of that.
Absolutely, Hamdi. I mean, your experience is vast, my friend. You have been out here pouring your passion into the work with everything you do, and I know you give it 110%. My question for you, too, is that I know there's a lot of measures happening right now in Tukwila, in SeaTac, around this kind of community control, right? And so I want to ask you, because you said something really poignant to me there about nobody right now on the port actually living in the Port Commission, actually living in this kind of area where they should be, where a lot of this stuff is impactful. So how can you bring your lived experience into this position to help actually guide more of that community voice?
Absolutely. No, that's a great question. I mean, we've seen a number of our small businesses face displacement in South King County and cities like, Tukwila, SeaTac as well. I'm proud to have worked on initiatives with the county that invested $1.5 million in a new market and cooperative housing in Tukwila. And that project took, government employees and staffers like myself and, co-creating with the community who was leading those efforts and our community-based organizations to make those investments. And, really the port has, said over and over, and they do, want to support small businesses. And, if we have folks who are from the community who have lived experience. I shop at those small businesses, right, that have faced displacement. I have worked with them around the clock. I remember when our SeaTac small businesses were facing displacement. We were having a lot of those disputes were happening between the SeaTac City Council and the community. And, I would be at that city hall until like 11 p.m. at night at times, And so really, I understand those issues. It's personal. It's where I shop, I live. And so I will bring that passion and energy to work around the clock to help, resolve some of those issues. And also it's like, when you have people who have lived experience as well as work experience, their lens is different, right? Their vision is different. My vision and lens will be different than other port commissioners. So, building an inclusive workforce or expanding diversity in contracting will be top priority for me, right? And it won't be a situation where I'm like, let me research and look at the data. I have my lived experience that I'm bringing to the table, and that can't be discounted. And so we need to start thinking like that and start seeing that people's lived experience is sometimes more beneficial than somebody's work experience, right? You have firsthand experience and probably had those experience from a young age, which I did. I grew up watching my mother juggle her job at SeaTac Airport, right? My dad was a truck driver, right? Like I understand that, our seaport operations moving quickly is important, and in the trucking industry, time is money. I grew up hearing that, so those things can't be discounted.
Right. Now, I know me personally, growing up here, Seattle guy, is that it hasn't always been the best kind of relationships between the port and our community. And a lot of times, for years, a lot of our businesses were locked out of the port, especially out there at SeaTac and some of everything else. Won't go too deep into that here today with you. But broadly speaking, across the port of Seattle, what could the port be doing better? What kind of new things would you like to see? What kind of innovations would you like to see in place there across the port system?
Yeah, no, and I appreciate you bringing up like just the historical context, right? As a Black immigrant, I stand on the shoulders of our civil rights leaders, who've paved the way for even me to be here and to exist, right, in this space and the work that I do. And so I just want to recognize that, right? It's folks like Tyree Scott that have worked really hard around port issues and, the Central Contractors Association. And so there's a lot of folks who worked on port issues that I just want to recognize and speak on that. For me, there's a number of issues that I would like to work on at the port. Our environmental issue is an economic issue, right? We have the air quality in even South King, when you look at other parts of the region, is the impacts are more severe. There's particles that have been found in the air in areas like SeaTac that other research have connected them to different types of cancer. And so climate change, environmental justice is important. Building an inclusive workforce, right, and diversifying our contracts. How do we make sure some of our small businesses who want to be able to contract and find bids with the airport are able to do that, right? To see more of their businesses in the airport. I really do think the port right now can really help our community recover and thrive. So those are some of the things that I want to see. And then the other thing is like transparency and accessibility, right? Like how do we make sure our airport is the most accessible airport in the nation, and we can do that. And for me, those things are important. Supporting our community that are, people who are disabled and those who, maybe speak limited English, navigating our port and our port operations is so important. And, when I was working for Congresswoman Jayapal, I managed her constituent services. And so prioritizing the voices of our residents and our community and our workers is a top priority for me, right? And making sure that we have an accessible and transparent government. I think sometimes folks forget that the port is a government entity and it's not just business, right? Like, we want to work with our business community, our local residents and workers to make sure that those operations are happening in a way that is transparent and accessible.
Yeah, absolutely. And before I ask you this next question, I got to say congratulations, because Jayapal also endorsed you for this position, which is huge. And you could probably talk more about that. But I do want to ask too, because when we're talking about bringing more diversity into something like the Port Commission, it's not just about you breaking barriers, but it's also about young people being able to see themselves as a part of solutions to bring in, again, their lived experience into these kind of areas that normally and historically have really been almost shut out from having that kind of diversity. And so I just want to ask you how important it is to you that your position also showcase to the future generations and these young folks out here, that they too can be a part of the solutions in their communities.
Right. No, that is such a great question and a top priority for me, right? Creating jobs, making, port, either whether it's contracts or positions more readily available for all our residents is a top priority. I'll take, actionable steps to help create jobs for, our adults, people with disability, right? That's another community that has been often left out and out of conversations, right? And our youth, right? Allowing them to find more opportunities to, connect with, whether that is construction opportunities, maritime, aviation, trade, even logistics. Like, there's so much opportunities at the port, right? And so, being able to give them an avenue to be able to have an opportunity to, get a job around, port-related industries, it's huge. And a lot of the times people don't know about it. The amount of messages I've gotten in the last 2 weeks about folks saying, like, I didn't even think about the port. Like, are there apprenticeships programs at the port? Are there internship programs at the port? What are all the, the port opportunities? And we are seeing a labor shortage, right? And so if that's the case, we have to make sure that the next generation is really equipped and understands how they can, navigate the port and be able to get some of those job opportunities. And it's creating jobs equitably, right? And that's the sort of lens I will bring, is making sure that when we're thinking about how to create jobs, that we're thinking about that equitably and ensuring that it serves all our residents, and really honing in on also where the needs are greatest. And it's not just this idea of like, it's equality. We need to just think about the whole region. Yes, we think about the whole region, but also honing in on those communities that have been hit hard, especially by the pandemic. We're in this phase where we're thinking recovery. We're thinking, how do we build back better? And if we're going to do that, we need folks who have strong equity lenses at the table. And I'll be that person at the port.
Yeah, the port is big money. Like, people don't realize it's one of those things that just kind of operates. Nobody really thinks about it, and everybody's real focused down there at City Hall and City Council and everything else. But the port is a big economic driver, and this port right here, SeaTac, and as well as the ports, the water ports. I mean, this is the gateway to the Pacific, 100%. And with so many imports and exports coming in and out of the ports here, as well as people coming in and out of the ports, this is a very big position. Tell me, Hamdi, who can vote on Port Commission? Where does that show up? What's the geographic area for people to vote for Port Commission?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. I think the most exciting thing about the port race too is everyone in King County can vote on this race and can decide on who becomes that next port commissioner. So long as you live in King County, those port positions will be on the ballot. They are positioned, right? So I'm running for position number 3, and so you'll see a position attached to the candidate. However, you're still able to vote for that person. So whether you live in Seattle, the North End, you live in South King County, SeaTac, Tukwila, any of those areas, you'll be able to decide who becomes your next port commissioner.
Awesome. This has been so revealing, I think, to me, because as Omari said, a lot of the times, folks are focused on kind of where a lot of attention gets drawn, and not enough attention gets drawn to the port. And so I want to ask you too, in terms of when you're talking about creating those equitable opportunities, how much of it is important to you that the business, you talked about transparency, that the business of what port commissioners do is really known to those communities who have been left out? How important is that to you, Hamdi?
It's a top priority, right? For me, listening to our community, listening to the workers' needs, should always be the center of what elected officials do, right? And that's when I say, like, we need strong leadership in government now more than ever. That is what I'm talking about, right? We need elected officials who are going to center those voices and really make their operations very accessible and transparent to ensure that people know what is happening. As you get elected, your job, top priority job, is ensuring that you are using taxpayers' dollars, appropriately and investing back into the community. And so for me, that is going to be centered. The center of my platform is ensuring that residents do know about what the operations that are happening at the port are, and that we hold listening sessions, that when something is happening, we just don't leave it to come to our commission meeting and hear about it, but that we're thinking innovatively, right? Like, we're using social media, that our port commissioners have boots on the ground, right? That they're out there in community visiting different sites, and that they're talking to residents across the region to let them know what is happening. It's their responsibility to do that. And honestly, that is one of the reasons why I was like, I should run for port commissioner, because I don't really see a lot of my port commissioners. There are some I do see, and I am in communications with and appreciate the work that they're doing. But in position 3, that's how I feel, right? Like, I feel like we need, port commissioners that are really going to have boots on the ground and centering the voices of community and making their operations more transparent and visible, right? And thinking innovatively, using social media, making sure that materials are translated in different languages. That has been centered in my campaign, and making ASL available, right? And that we're thinking about our disability, folks who are disabled in our community, and closed captioning, things like that. Like, when you watch like some of the Port Commission meetings, if you have if you're a limited English speaker, or if you have some sort of disability, you might not even know what is going on there, and you're left out. And so really, it is so important that we are thinking more broadly and how to include all of our community members, right? And when you think about economic issues, that is impacting all sorts of people, right? Whether you're Black, white, Muslim, Jewish, those are issues that hurt all of us. And when you think about, climate issues, it's the same thing. So we really need folks who are in these positions of power, who really are thinking about our whole community and are thinking holistically about issues, and are not afraid of those who have elected them, right?
I love that.
I read that the campaign materials, translated into 10 languages and American Sign Language.
There we
Really
go.
on the ball. Before we let you go, how can people get up with you or your campaign, or support your campaign?
Yes, a couple things. You can volunteer for the campaign. We will start phone banking and doing, field operations. Of course, things look different right now, right? We're in the middle of a pandemic, so the usual sort of canvassing and door knocking, things like that will change. But you can visit our website, hamdiforport.com. Also, you can find us on social media. Our handles are all Hamdi for Port, whether that's Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. you can donate to the campaign, right? Whatever you can afford. I recognize we're in the middle of a pandemic, so anything anybody can chip in, I'm super grateful for. And so, we want this campaign to really center the voices of our community and for it to be powered by the people. And so anything anyone can do to support us, we appreciate it. Retweeting, making sure we get our message out, right? This campaign needs to reach all of our county. So anything that, you are able to do, we welcome that. And so, follow us on social media, visit the website to donate if you can. And again, thank you guys for this opportunity to share that.
All right, Hamdi Muhammad, candidate for Port Commission, position number 3. Thank you for taking time to join us this morning.
Thank you, Hamdi.
All righty.
See you soon. Yo,
Wow.
Man, high energy, right?
Yeah, and she's so ready. I mean, I just love when we have folks on here that are going for elected positions that are ready. I mean, seriously. And I love what she said too about bringing her lived experience into it, because oftentimes, I think when I was thinking about growing up, a lot of folks were like, well, it was almost like they were just too prepared to be a politician or too prepared to go into, oh, I did the right things. I went to the right schools. She's like, look, I'm bringing my lived experience up in here.
I mean, that's real. I feel that. I'm in media right now. My lived experience was being in the darkroom when I was a kid, a small kid in the darkroom. My dad developing photos. You know what I'm saying? It's the lived experience. I'm in this space right now. So, but the thing is that one thing, is Hamdi talked a lot about inclusion and equity and everything else. But Hamdi been handling the bag too. She knows how to look at a budget here. Some of this stuff in here, look at these budgets, monitoring budgets of billions of dollars and everything else. So it isn't just this community and this, which is important, but somebody who's been physically responsible as well. I think that might make a good combination.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're talking about the fact that she's very qualified for this role. I mean, that's what it is. It's not just like Omari's saying here. It's not just about, oh, I'm going to bring diversity. I'm just my lived experience. It's also that, look, I have been putting my boots on the ground in these areas that are needed, that are going to be helpful to the port, helping their operations and helping the multi-million dollars, billion dollars that they're responsible for, and making sure, again, that, that lived experience in terms of those qualifications also funnel into the role. I mean, I don't know about y'all, but I'm voting for Hamdi.
Look at you.
I put it out there. I'm just put it out there.
You're not supposed to be saying that stuff on me.
I'm sorry. I mean, the fact that, everybody in King County gets a chance to vote. I'll be honest.
Right.
I gotta be real. There are so many positions when we are talking about voting. Oftentimes when it is not like a presidential campaign, we don't hear enough from these people that are going for these positions. So I just appreciate the fact that she's being honest, transparent. I love that.
So in 19 minutes and 22 seconds, she got your vote.
Well, I know her. I know she's qualified, right? It's not just because she's a Black woman or doing this and that. It's because she is really qualified. And ultimately, I think that the port does need that kind of diversity. So it's an exciting time.
I'll say this: if she approaches port commissioner with the preparation that she approached coming on the show, you know what I'm saying? It's good to see someone prepared.
Yeah.
And we didn't talk to Hamdi before the interview today at all. We're just scheduling email. So it was good to see Hamdi prepared. But one thing, like I say, is that what we have to look at here across our county and across our region is there's all these positions that a lot of times go underneath the radar. No one's really paying attention to port. No one's really paying attention to whatever. And man, a lot of these policies, Port of Seattle got a history. And we might have to call on SJT over there, the Black Heritage Society of the state of Washington, so we can talk about the history that the port has had with the Black community here, and it hasn't always really been good, and it's really taken a lot of pressure a lot of times to just even the playing field out there at the port. So, another thing brought up is that she actually lives in the area near the airport. I think that probably is important that somebody who's on the port commission actually lives near a port.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that no one else actually does that's already on the commission also speaks volumes. I think, when we're talking about somebody being able to bring a lot of that community voice into the role, which I know folks in the community, get excited about, because oftentimes it's like, we got this, we're knowledgeable, we're educated, we're the ones who are qualified to, dispense these funds or these resources. We know where things need to go. But I love that, man. Let's open it up, man, and make sure more voices are involved.
I used to work on a project, a marketing communication project out there at in the port in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, and also the port in Mombasa. You've been to Mombasa,
Kenya. I love Mombasa.
Big port in Mombasa, Kenya, and the port there in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. Man, that port is big business. That's what I'm saying. People don't realize, like, everybody's watching City Hall, which is important, and council members, man, but the port is, man, they print money at the port. Believe me.
Yeah.
We're gonna take a short break right now. We're remixing our show today. We're remixing our show today, but we're having a good time all the same. You're watching the Morning Update Show.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us. Back on this rap ish, I ain't even broke a sweat, homie, this practice. Pondering my next move, staring at my track list, hope I ain't missing my window. Praying like a Baptist, Seattle's own. Tired of this Game of Thrones. They made a list of the best rappers, and guess who wasn't on? While the disrespect continues, I'm steady packing these venues.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.
Wow, I want Trey Holiday. You just put it out there.
I'm sorry. I mean, you know me. And there's a part of me that's just like super real. I don't know. Like, is it too transparent? I'm just saying. I'm asking people here in the studio. I'm like, have you ever talked to a port commissioner? And somebody running? You've never even heard from somebody who's running. Like, they didn't care about our vote. You know what I mean? And that to me is super important, because again, when we're talking about these elected positions, oftentimes these folks they feel like they got it in the bag, man. Hamdi's gonna give them a little, run for their monty.
All right, I don't want to see you missing the morning show because you're out phone banking. you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, keeping it on election, we're out of order today, but we're doing our thing. When you talk about elections and voting, even here in King County in the state of Washington, we've been voting by mail since forever. People I think that we're a national leader as far as access to voting, when people can vote, how people can vote, some everything else. My friend, that is not the case down in the state of Georgia. And the legislature has just moved down there to, in my opinion, totally suppress the vote. This is from 11 Alive news station in Atlanta, Georgia.
A controversial election bill clears another hurdle at the state capitol. It would add voting restrictions to upcoming elections. 11 Alive's Doug Richards is live at the Capitol with more for us tonight. Doug?
Well, Republican efforts to pass what they call an election reform bill is certainly easily the most divisive issue that this legislative session has seen here in 2021. And the debate on the House floor as they took up this bill certainly reflected that.
The bill also encourages in-precinct voting.
To Republicans, it is a series of perfectly sensible election reforms.
HB 531 is textbook voter suppression.
To Democrats, it is nonsensical. House Bill 531 is a 66-page bill that would create tighter restrictions on in-person voting, vote counting, and especially absentee balloting. It adds an ID requirement for absentee ballot requests. It limits the number of absentee ballot drop boxes. It also requires drop boxes to be kept indoors and inaccessible if the building is closed. And it allows only 2 weekend voting days, one of which can be a Sunday.
We know that forcing counties to choose between Saturday and Sunday voting is targeting Black voters who have used souls to the polls to cast their votes.
The bill also makes it a misdemeanor to give food or drink to any voter waiting in line within 150 feet of a precinct. Critics said the bill was written just to give cover to Republicans smarting from Donald Trump's loss of Georgia in November. Republicans framed it only as reform.
For those who want to keep hollering about suppression, let me tell you something. This is a politicalized issue, folks. It's about keeping people whipped up into a frenzy. That's the political game. But it's time to put it to bed, folks.
So the House passed the bill on a party line vote, sends it to the Senate, and the Senate already has its own version of what it calls election reforms in the stew as well. Meantime, Democrats, even though it's not law yet, are already talking about challenging it in court. Back to you.
All right, much more ahead on that. Doug, thanks a lot.
I mean, first of all, come on. Anybody can see from a mile away, as they would say in my household, man, Stevie Wonder can see that this right here is definitely about what just transpired in this presidential election. The fact that it got overturned, the fact that we understood that the folks came out in the droves. For them to be putting a misdemeanor to serve food or beverage to folks in line, I mean, you've got to be, this is like taking it all the way back to like the early 1900s or something. Oh, I just can't even believe this is at that level now going to the Senate.
Well, what we've said all along, voter suppression has never disappeared in our country. You see, 100 years ago, they were just standing outside of the ballot box with a shotgun saying, nigga, you ain't gonna vote. No, it's been more formalized these days. It's going to state legislatures and everything else. But like the fix has always been in on the vote. It's always been in. And they're just so emboldened about it now. Now it's voter reform. Imagine too many people are voting. It's voter reform. And you know, this was really to be expected from the state of Georgia. And you remember a few elections ago when Stacey Abrams was running. And at the time, Secretary of State Kemp, he threw out like 100,000 votes. And man, Georgia is wild on the voter suppression, but it is real right here today in America. And this is happening in real time in the state of Georgia.
You know, the thing is, too, is that I think that so many more people, like you just said, are involved in the process and they're watching these things play out. I say, Georgians, to all of you out there, you know, utilize your rights out here. I mean, this is something that I think would have a lot of people in the Pacific Northwest in the streets. Yeah, I just got to be honest. I mean, this would not be something that flies up here, man.
Though, is that's real. Like, you know, even with Stacey Abrams, it was crazy, like how quiet they were down in Georgia. Like if you came to the state of Washington with that, come on. Like we'd be in the streets, like, you know, for reals. So I mean, why would you want to limit the amount of time that people get out to vote? And then you can only vote one weekend before either Saturday or a Sunday. They're trying to circumvent all the different ways that Black people get people out to the polls. Mm-hmm. And then now, if you're talking about an election that's happening in primary season, and you have people standing in polling lines in 80, 90 degree heat, 100% humidity, and if you can't give nobody the water in line within 150 feet of the polling entrance.
Well, my thing is what is the precedence for that? Like, why not? What is wrong with that? There's absolutely nothing actually wrong with it, but this is what they do. This is why people actually, again, I always take it back to this. Take your stake back in your claim in this country, because it's up to us, the people, we the people. And I want to say one more thing too, because we've been talking about it, man. Voter suppression is nothing new. They never wanted everybody to actually vote.
Ever.
That is really the truth right there. And the fact that more and more of us Americans are waking up to that horrid history, that they never really wanted everybody to vote. They wanted to keep it at this certain level. It is clear. And this right here is another indicator in 2021, man.
Well, I'm going to tell you this. It takes a whole state legislator to try to push back on one black woman. Stacey Abrams' movement down there in Georgia and getting all these people to register and first-time voters and everything else who showed up down there. This is what they do, though, is look at it. Just change the rules. I mean, Georgia flipped. Like it flipped. You know what I'm saying? 100%. If these are just the results, man, you know what I'm saying? You win some, you lose some. You go organize your people better. And actually, down there in Georgia, absentee voting is something, and mail-in voting is Republicans who usually have more mail-in votes traditionally. But these guys, man, I mean, they trying to make sure that they recapture the polls down there by all means necessary.
They should be ashamed of themselves, man. I mean, be beyond ashamed of themselves. Ultimately, this is another indicator of why our voices are so crucial to real change that's going to be sustainable, because it's a game when you're talking about attacking this system that has been so oppressive for so many, not just black people. When we think about poor people, we think about, Latinos, we think about all kind of different people. It is oppressive in a certain regard. And this right here is going to extend that oppression a bit here. So I really hope that, the Senate does something different. I mean, this can't fly, man.
Right. And so one of the questions, so Lloyd, a big supporter here, Lloyd Gregory asked a good question. He's like, well, do you guys really think there's suppression? Some of these things, probably good ideas. I would say this, that like they recounted those votes, the presidential election, all the votes there in Georgia. I think it went through 3 or 4 different recounts plus signature verification. So there's no one who's saying that there is fraud in Georgia. That's the whole point. So why is there reforms? All these reforms coming right now when the Secretary of State of the state of Georgia said it was a Republican, by the way, was a free and fair election. And as many times as the ballots were recounted there. So it makes you wonder, if it was a free and fair election certified by the Republican Secretary of State, an election that was recounted several times, national spotlight and scrutiny and everything else, and it was deemed free and fair, why do they need reform?
Yeah, there we go right there. They don't want it to be free and fair at the end of the day. And I love that you said that and laid it out like that. Because ultimately, that's exactly right. When we have people utilizing their voice, wielding their power as citizens of that state, clearly they said, we are done with Trump. They went along and like you said, Stacey Abrams was able to rally so many more folks to be a part of that. And ultimately, Georgia, you're going to have to deal with it. It is time for some change, man. Get ready, man. Get on the train.
Yeah, I think that usually we call for reform when you find like all kinds of problems, like, oh man, this was messed up. We really need reform. But it's their Secretary of State there who said that this election was free and fair and some of everything else. So it's just kind of odd, things that make you go, Why are we reforming something here that they said, for the most part, worked exactly the way it was supposed to, right? All right. I got this one all year. We're going to take a quick break right now. When we come back, we got time for 1 or 2 headlines. You're watching the Morning Update Show.
I did it for the city. I did it for the love. I did it for the people. I did it for us. Back on this rap ish. I ain't even broke a sweat, homie. This practice. Pondering my next move. Staring at my track list. Hope I ain't miss my window. Praying like a Baptist. Seattle's own. Tired of this Game of Thrones. They made a list of the best rappers, and guess who wasn't on? While the disrespect continues, I'm steady packing these venues.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents.
Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.
All right, welcome back to the Morning Update Show. Whether it was just intimidation, whether it was your employer sitting there outside of the polling station and you knew that if you went and voted, you wasn't going to have a job, whether it was the poll tax, whether it was the grandfather clause, whether it was the literacy test. And they sent to a literacy test some of the examples of like students at Harvard. they couldn't get the literacy. This is what it is. We just gotta accept our history in America. The good, the bad, the ugly, man. We just accept it. Like, yeah, suppression's been there from day one.
Absolutely.
Coming back here to some local headlines before we get out of here. I thought this one was important. This comes from our partners at the South Seattle Emerald. Silent March in Tacoma commemorates Manuel Ellis ahead of anniversary of his death. And so what happened here is there was a march through Tacoma. About 200 people marched a mile through Tacoma, quiet except for a beating drum. The silent march on Sunday, February 28th, was organized by Black religious leaders in Tacoma to commemorate Ellis, who was killed by the Tacoma Police Department on March 3rd, 2020. This was so tomorrow marks 1 year anniversary of the death of Manuel Ellis. And this Manuel Ellis story is just, like I said, it's like peeling an onion. There just keeps being more layers and layers. And the last time we reported in on this, they talked about how there were other officers involved that weren't, they said they weren't there. And it turns out they were there, some of everything else. It's the investigation right now sits with the Washington State Patrol because there's lots of conflicts of interest around different law enforcement agencies there. But, to be honest with you, on the real, especially a lot of people in Seattle, we would have never really heard about or picked up on the Manuel Ellis story if it wasn't for George Floyd.
Yeah, I mean, this is why I love that the South Seattle Emerald, as was reported in that article there, that they have been doing a deep dive, keeping their fingers on the pulse of this story. I mean, when we talk about peeling an onion, my goodness, some of the latest stuff is about, how he actually was killed and that he may have been laying face down on the ground and got shot in the back.
No, that's Tommy Lee.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
He's next. Don't worry.
No, but okay. So you're right. But ultimately, it's important that we actually understand these cases. Oftentimes, we don't understand a lot of the details. And ultimately, we have to actually, when you talk about it, man, we got to do that work of peeling that onion back, man.
Right. And speaking of the Tommy Lee case, this is Carolyn. Now, Carolyn Bick of the South Seattle Emerald, I got to tell you, she might want to be they might be one of the most dogged reporters on a case. The Tommy Lee case, Carolyn Bick grabbed onto it and they just refused to let it go.
Yeah.
Here's something as well from our partners at the South Seattle Emerald. Says here that King County argued for in-person trial in Lay case despite own COVID-19 precautions. Despite King County's own emergency order halting all in-person civil jury trials until at least late March in order to keep people from catching the virus, lawyers for King County and Deputy Molina tried to argue that an in-person trial could be conducted safely. And basically, the U.S. District Court Judge Thomas S. Zilli denied their request. But basically, the King County and Deputy Molina, their attorneys argued for in-court trial. And what the Lay case is saying is like, man, the family members are old, they have preconditions and everything else. But I'll say, man, the county is pulling everything out the bag on this Tommy Lee case. And again, this is another one where they said that Tommy Lee had a knife. Then it turns out that he might have had a pen. Then it turns out that he might not have had anything at all because of where they found this pen when they recreated the crime scene. They were like, it wasn't likely that he was holding a pen. Then they said that he came towards him. Then it turns out that he might have been shot in the back or even on the ground.
You know what?
So this is the case right here.
Hey, this is the one. That's probably why I was so ready to talk about it, because ultimately, I love that South Seattle Emerald has been very much on this case. Ultimately, we may have only heard about the first reports that came out, right? Oh, he had a knife. Okay, boom. But slowly but for surely, more and more of these facts are coming out. And, it is a travesty, honestly. It's also that, I want to just say here, when we talk about folks that should be ashamed of themselves, they should be ashamed of themselves trying to do an in-person trial. And right now during COVID, his grandmother is 90 years old and definitely has been there trying to make sure that her grandson sees justice. I mean, when we talk about the families that absorb a lot of this, that have to absorb those deaths, that's really what we're talking about here, man. They should have been having way more compassion for the family. But ultimately, I think it's so much they don't really want us to know. Oh,
right. I'll be honest with you too. I think that the county is doing a lot of stuff. Even the county executive around this case and the prosecutor and everybody, they doing a lot of this stuff here that I think that if Tommy Lay was black, and if it was the pressure from the black community on their head, they wouldn't be trying a lot of this stuff. It's the Vietnamese community. And I think that these guys are trying to pull everything out because traditionally that community hasn't been as loud and vocal about such things as the black community has. I don't think that, some of these things they wouldn't even be trying. And a lot of this stuff really wouldn't come to light if it wasn't for Carolyn Bick and their work over there at the South Seattle Remote.
Man, great work, Carolyn Bick. I mean, honestly, it is reporters like you that keep us abreast and informed as there's so many more details that come out over time. And this is why I always want to say and big up community media, because we have the ability to follow through on a lot of these cases. And, major media sometimes may only hit that headline. Maybe they hit a review, at some anniversary date. But as information comes out, it's not every single piece of bit of information that gets reported on. So thank you so much, Carolyn Bick, for your work, because honestly, again, I think it's important that the larger community understand some of these tactics that get played out in these cases that oftentimes go outside of our purview. Lots of different stuff that happens. So I'm glad that this case is kind of showing us a little bit about how folks are moving, man.
All right. We're up against the hour, but tomorrow, up next, we have Sean Good here tomorrow from Choose 180. And so Sean's going to be talking about that Supreme Court ruling around simple drug possession and saying that now you can't be charged. So Sean Good has some thoughts about that. So he's going to join us tomorrow.
Bring our brother back on, man. He comes with that energy too. I'm ready.
Sean Good's high powered.
I love it.
All right, and then again, Councilmember Strauss is going to be here for Feel Good Friday. So we've got Councilmember Strauss here on Friday. Any last words before we get out of here, Trey Holiday?
I'm just enjoying my Converge family this morning. I just want to send a love and shout out to our Jake, always here, Miss Alia D'Alessandro, making it happen for us during any type of malfunction. You're always there. Just got to give love to the team, man.
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, things don't malfunction here often because they do such a good job managing everything. All right, so today I think we're good. Tomorrow, coronavirus update show, and then Thursday, Clapback Culture, Mike Davis and Julia Jesse. So that being said, here is a reminder for you to go forward in your purpose, go forward in your humanity, and we'll catch you tomorrow at 11 a.m. Peace.
Lift every voice and sing till earth in heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought. facing the rising sun.